Hey guys, Dragonstar here. Today I'm gonna make a simple guide for the beginners and the new players who are coming into the game and how to actually reach the first 1500 ELO on the rank ladder. When a new player wants to get coaching from me and wants to learn the basics and everything about the game, I recommend him pick one civilization, one strategy, and stick to it until you reach around 1500 ELO, because by that point you have basically mastered the basics. And when I say basics, you are mostly focusing on macro. I do not recommend learning all ins, a particular flashy build order to try to kill your opponent in the early game. I highly encourage everyone until they are 1500 ELO to play more of a macro game so that they learn ins and out of the game and think of it as like a more of a booming game and trying to get to 200 population as fast as possible. Going over those decisions will help you improve as a player and have like a wider base of knowledge on what to do in most situations. Once you're at 1500, you can start using that macro as like something you have in your back pocket when you are rushing your opponents. My playstyle at my level is much more attacking compared to someone who is new to the game. But when you're new to the game, I highly encourage players to focus very heavily on the macro aspect of the game before they jump into the aggressive stuff so that they understand what they're doing with. And it's, I would argue, easier to execute because you have the macro plan to always fall back on. Using those principles, the starting civilization would always be a good economic civilization, and one of the best opening slash economic civilizations when you start with is Franks, because their scout rush and free farming on their farms, having good hit points on their cavalry, and going for a scout rush in itself is also very beneficial for the macro game plan, since all you have to focus on in the early game are two resources, wood and food. And if you only focus on those two resources, it's much easier to follow as a game plan. I'm gonna showcase just your standard game plan on playing against two extreme AIs. I mean, against AIs, it's not particularly that hard to win the game, but that's not what we are focusing on. The first aspect that you have to focus on when you're looking at your game is economy. How do you set yourself up to go for a really nice and easy game plan where you are going to be able to set up yourself for the next stage? The first thing, as soon as you start the game, is always just going to be making villages non-stop. Make sure you're always queuing up villages, having a dedicated hotkey to go to town center and producing villages every second would be the option you want to always go for. Constantly having two villages in the queue so that you have zero downtime between the production cycles is also something you have to focus on. Scouting with the sheeps is not a requirement, but it is also something you can do. The thing that all the pros, if you've seen a game from them, like to do is have one sheep under their town center after the one that has already been killed already be there, so that there is no idle time between collection of these animals.
Okay.
The first 6 villages will go to sheep. 6 villages on sheep allows us to run our town centers non-stop without having any interruptions. And I'm gonna make generally like big circles with my scout to find my resources. This is a very beginner friendly guide on how to set up for a macro game after your opening. The build order will also be very beginner friendly. I do not recommend pushing deers at all until you're like 1500 or something. But maybe you can do it if you get into the habit of having good scouting pattern and having good habits to being able to find your opponents on time. The only reason I don't recommend players under 1500 to push, like I would rather mill deers, like teach people to mill the deers or the chickens rather than having to like push them instead. So economy is the first things we are going to talk about and we're going to develop. Having a build order for going up to feudal age for playing scouts should be what you should be focused on. So for the build order, it's always going to be 6 on food into 3 on word, and then you send villagers to hunt/berries depending on where you are in the map. I'm also going to be setting up some of the walls. It lets me connect these two wood lines. Having a good walling structure to your base is always very important so that you can protect different sections of the map. So walling is something you have to think about every single time. Whenever you see two wood lines like this, it's an easy wall off because I can connect wood lines and secure a huge chunk of my base. The only areas that will be more exposed will be something like this. I can see a cliff over here where I can connect it to this wood line and go to the edge of the map, or I can take this wood line and connect it to the edge of the map to defend myself. Same thing on the other side of the map at the same time. So these would be the things I'm thinking about when I'm looking to wall up myself. Rather than going for mill on the berries, I went for the deers because it's just more beneficial to do it this way. And the population I recommend going up on is something like basically 21. Even if you're getting rushed, that population is completely fine to go up on, is because you will have the extra resources bank in your for your access so that you can produce stuff. The reason pros go up really quickly compared to the beginners or the players who are new to the game is because we have such good grasp at the timings and production. Having no inefficiencies in our early game allows us to have very sharp build orders, which makes us much less vulnerable to the mistakes that most of the new players end up making. Lots of new players will have a lot of idle time in Dark Age, will forget houses, not really have the walling correctly. So to nullify all of that, going up a couple of extra populations up later to the next stage is going to be much more useful. So starting off with the next age, we're just gonna start like switching villagers to other resources. Usually you want to have 10 on word while going up. This is like a ancient build, but it still works and it's still really good. And the reason it's really good is because it basically allows you to have lots of resources for the next stage. While we're doing that, I'll also start making a barracks, and I'm gonna be preparing for a stable so that I can make scouts to harass my opponents. See, instead of going for the deer push, which will delay my scouting, I'm able to scout both my opponents at the same time before 10 minutes. This is ideally the time you always want to have. Anytime you're not able to scout your opponent under like you should be leaving your base at around 3 minutes, and you should be already done scouting their base and making a couple of loops around their base to check what resources they are on. Based on that, you can make decisions on what you can see your opponent throwing at you. Something to think about. If you're not in the habit of scouting your opponents on time, I highly encourage learning that so that you can make decisions to protect yourself against their rushes. As soon as I'm up, I'll start walling up as well and get the most important upgrade for the next stage, which is the wood upgrade. As soon as my villagers are done eating the sheep, I'll send villagers to the berries. These villagers are done with the hunt. I'm gonna get housed. And start making scouts and setting up yourself to fully wall yourself on the map. Walling yourself will just help you protect against any pressure that your opponents can throw at you. So learning to wall is definitely something I would encourage. Going for big box walls when you're learning the game is completely okay. Now we want to start making farms. I'll remove some of these villages from the berries and put them to straggler trees until I can continue making farms. And every 60 word, we want to make a farm until you are at least 14 farms. I got housed for a little bit, and as soon as I have 3 scouts is the killer number you always want to have when you're raiding with scouts. You'll try to start killing villages from your opponent, and the big mistake that everyone tries to do is try to kill multiple villages at the same time. My recommendation is always try to go for at least 1 villager at a time only. Oh my god. Even I'm like not really able to do all of these things at the same time while explaining, but something you can definitely consider. Trying to just make sure you're fully walled by minute 12, 13 is a good rule of thumb. Like being walled at this timing is usually a good indicator of if you're being safe against all the archers or the scouts that your opponents are going to throw at you. Just not letting them have access to your wood and gold mine and your berry is what your walling should be trying to achieve. Now once we have made like 5-6 scouts, we want 14 farms. As soon as we have 14 farms, we'll send every new villager after that to gold until you can click up. And the reason we are setting up for a macro game rather than a micro all-in game where I'm just trying to kill my opponent as fast as possible is because it's the safety play in this game. Like having more economy usually means you'll always just win against your opponent. In Age of Empires, it's like much easier to translate your economy advantage into a big army for the late game, which is exactly what we're trying to achieve. We're gonna just poke a little bit against these AI, like try to kill a villager here and there, and try to just set ourselves in a position where we are 3TC booming against all of them. Like I have a scout over there, they're just sitting there trying to get into my base, but they're not able to because they're bumping into the walls, which is completely fine. I'm gonna try to hit the other guy because this guy is defending himself with a lot of spearmen, just rotating around. Start a few more farms once I have 7-8 villages on gold. And I'm up to the next stage. Whenever I see spearmen, 1 or 2 spears like this, I can't really engage against that. Both the players are just starting a lot of spearmen. Now we think about where we'll actually want to boom up. I can see a town center spot over here. This is flat ground. I can delete a couple of palisades and fit a town center over there. Lots of hills near my base. That's kind of unfortunate, but it should be completely fine. They are starting to hit my walls. I need to kind of protect it. Whenever stuff like this happens, the way you re-wall and reinforce your walls is just making a couple of house walls behind your existing palisade in order to defend yourself. Whenever there's no scouts in one place, I'll try to isolate and kill villages like this, getting armor and attack upgrades while going up to the next stage. Unit composition is something else you can think about. When you are playing open on a map like this, you have to mix in other unit compositions. Like against spearmen, you want to make archers or skirmishers, but most of the time, if you can get yourself walled up, you don't really have to think about it, especially at a lower level, because if you learn to play with walls, you don't have to learn the unit composition part of the game until you are at a certain ELO, because you can get by with just macroing during the game. Looks like the AI has aggroed inside my base and is looking to get inside my base using that hole that I just created, which is not the biggest deal. I should be fine against that. Oh, there's the hole. I need to run away. Yeah, this is definitely my bad. Let's see if the AI is gonna run away against this. I guess he chooses to leave. But I'll use this fact that he's made the gap open or something. Trying to set myself for 3 town centers. And my initial thought process for all of this is just trying to get to 200 population as fast as possible while setting myself up for 3 town centers. I don't really care about picking up relics. I don't really care about like contesting the map control or anything like that. My big job would be to hit my opponent with a couple of knights. Like the same way I'm using my scouts in Feudal Age would be the same way I'm gonna be using the knights in Castle Age. 8 villagers on gold, the rest of them will go to word and start making farms every 60 word. The same macro cycle we were using in Feudal Age is the same thing you're gonna be using in Castle Age. The only big difference is that you're now playing with 3 town centers instead of 1, and instead of playing with scouts, you're playing with knights. You will control the knights the same way you are controlling the scouts. You just run away from the pike or the spearman and start hitting villages wherever you can find them. Continue revolving yourself against the AI if you are practicing against it. If you're playing against humans, you'll see more varied unit composition. You might face a little bit more resistance, but the more you practice, the easier it will become. Continue making knights. And I haven't really hit player 3. I've only been hitting player 2 most of the time. He's attacking me, so I'll apply a little bit of pressure to him so that he backs off. The big thing I'm trying to do is spend my word as soon as I can get it. I find a couple of villages over there. These skirmishes are being annoying. Let's see if the pikemen will react to that. If the pikemen do not react, I can kill a lot of these skirmishes for free. Looks like the pikemen reacted. So run away from that fight. Just making sure I'm always paying attention to the army and not losing it for free. If I can get any villager kills for free, I'll get them. If not, I'll run away. Maybe I can get the cleanup on this army, +1/+1 on those pikemen versus +1/+1 on my knights.
Make 3 houses.
I can get that cleanup, but it's not the cleanup I actually want. I can kill these 4 pikemen with these knights, but it would be a better trade if I just wait for the other knights and completely kill this army.
Make 3 houses.
It's just mostly about combining your army together over there. Always making sure I'm producing units the entire time. Like I have 5 production buildings constantly making units, so I'm constantly getting housed. And fighting against pikemen is completely fine as long as you can continue producing it, because pikemen are cost effective against knights, but they're not pop efficient. Pop efficiency means your unit quality is so high that you can beat your counter units even if it is not beneficial to you cost. But that value actually flips the more numbers you have versus inversely the more numbers you have proportional to how many units they are investing into. So it's actually the opposite. When you have a high quality unit with high amount of numbers against their counter which are in low quantity, you'll actually get even more insane value than using the cost effective trade in that scenario. Now both of these AIs, like I'm constantly just hitting them while I'm like trying to get a couple of villager kills here and there and running away whenever there is enough resistance against my army composition or my raidings that I'm doing on them. They're not walled up, so I'm gonna exploit that and hit them where it hurts. Also, a lot of these knights in my army are pretty weak, so I'm gonna be starting to heal them. Healing is very beneficial. Isolating these weak knights and only using the fresh ones. And I'm also going to be starting to pull more villages to gold so that I can start preparing to go up to the Imperial Age. Going up to 4 town centers is not necessary. Just playing on 3 town centers and constantly researching economy technology is good enough. So again, the same logic for why fighting against low number of pikemen is actually completely fine is because of my unit value. If I have the numbers, I can fight the counters, but whenever he has more numbers, I cannot take that fight. And this is just some pro petrol stacking hacks, but these many pikemen, even for petrol stacking, are pretty bad to deal with. My economy management, while I was paying attention to that fight, kind of slipped, so I'm gonna make a market, trying to fix it a little bit. Also balancing economy for stone at the same time. The build order definitely could be improved upon in the mid game since I was microing in multiple spots. But that's not what this guide is more about. This guide is more about trying to macro against two opponents at the same time is also a factor for this one, but just playing standard, like playing with scouts into knights and then preparing to macro for Imperial Age usually is the correct approach for 99% of the cases on lower ELOs. If you are having trouble with playing according to this game plan, I would highly encourage you to start just grinding out build orders in order to make sure you don't die in the early game. Most of the complaints I've had when I coach people is usually they're dying to some rushes, but if you start walling up at the correct time and having the same uptimes with constant production of scouts and then following along the game plan of just not trying to finish the game in the early game and macroing for late game, usually your opponent cannot really keep up against that sort of approach at lower level because economy is not something a lot of players focus that heavily on when they are kind of new to the game. They are going to try to kill you with some silly rush, which can work every now and then. I'm not gonna argue if it's something strange that you have not seen before. You might not die against it, but in the aggregate, you learn the game much faster going towards a higher ELO point. This will not work until a certain point. Of course, the execution level on strategies, aggressive strategies, most of the time at that ELO cutoff point would be the changing situation. After 1500, I only recommend learning to play Mana Tombs. Mana Tomb is a very aggressive strategy, but you are sacrificing economy in exchange to try to do damage. Because if a Mana Tomb rush actually fails, you are permanently behind against your opponent until you can justify making and spending resources into making Mana Tombs. When you play Scouts, you are already investing into a lot of farms which pay off for themselves very quickly. And Scouts are such a mobile unit which will force your opponent to either invest into Spearmen or Walling, which more than makes up for the amount of investment you have made into the scouts. Now we are getting into the Imperial Age. Looks like Red is also in Imperial Age, so I am going to have to hit him first. I have made a lot of stables while going up, and I'm also getting the conscription upgrade while healing up most of the knights which were injured in the early game. Basically setting myself up to click the paladin upgrade. Looks like most of these knights have healed up. I'll leave a couple of them and then set off with the rest to hit Red, because if I don't hit Red, I saw him playing with a lot of pikemen. He'll start playing with halberdier, which will not be that good for me, because I don't want him to get to halberdier because they will do a lot more damage. He's on halb, but I managed to kill a lot of his stuff before he does that. And even against the halbs, as long as I stay with that argument of if I'm fighting against low number of halbs, I'm actually in an okay spot. I'm also gonna try to raid a couple of these units. And yeah, I mean, I'm basically able to crush the halberdier mass, which is exactly what we were looking for. I'm gonna constantly take the hill and patrol into that army. Also try to raid over here. Maybe I can look for extra gold on the map since I'm running out of gold. Make trebs and make castles on the map to control extra gold and stuff. I wasn't really hitting my opponents as much because I wanted to explain, but now we are getting close to 200 population. That's all I want to be worried about at this stage of the game. whenever you have completed your economy setup, the only thing you care about is trying to get to 200 population. I'll start right-clicking some of these town centers and nuking the raid's economy. The other thing I have to focus on is killing green. I'll also make a castle here, get fletching for my castle. Looks like both of them are playing pure halberdiers. Against pure halberdiers with paladin, it's gonna be difficult, but if you have enough castles, you can start mixing something like hand cannons or your own unique unit when you're playing Franks. I'm just for the sake of argument not even going to do that. I'm just gonna try to kill both of them with only playing paladin. Like red is almost completely dead, like his economy is toast. And I'm just gonna try to kill green at the same time as well. Like red is almost out of the game. There's almost nothing he can really do to come back into the game. Unit composition is something I'm not really thinking about at the moment at all. I'll get this upgrade. And I'll try to get rid of this one and this one. I'm gonna try to get rid of the rams first because they are the ones trying to take down the castle. If I can kill the rams and bait these halberdiers into these castle fire, I should be in a very good spot. Lots of halbs have been pulled on this side of the map. It is okay. Just trying to maintain 200 population. Oh, I really don't want that castle to die. It should stay up. But green is playing pure halberdier, which is not good. We're still trying to make some progress against that. Like just with sheer numbers, you can kind of outplay against your counter units by isolating numbers and just snowballing with a bigger mass rather than relying on counter units. Even though game will make you feel like counter units is important, if your macro is on point, you don't really need it. Just trying to avoid wherever he has more halberdiers than I have paladin. So many monk conversions. Let's try to get rid of them. Keep killing. Villages wherever we can find them. Always try to maintain 200 population. Rams are my biggest enemies here. Once I can get rid of the rams, I can kill the halberdiers with the castle. And slowly but surely we're also killing the other guy. mean, there's not much else to do other than just constantly secure more gold access and get to 200 pop. I'll just keep making paladin. Yeah, so this is a position where he's starting to have more halberdiers than I have paladin, and I really don't want to do that. I'm just gonna change that fact and try to make sure that doesn't happen. There's a monk here he's always aggroing with. It makes my attention be targeted towards it. There's it.
Café, pastisseau,
Café, Aoe, pastisseau,
Oe, fait,
pastisseau.
There's the monk. There's the monk. He got the convergence anyway. What good is devotion if he can get convergence like that? I feel like it's a useless technology if it can always get the conversion through. Although it does not make your paladin unconvertible, but it should provide some resistance.
Make 3 houses.
I mean, late game is mostly about just using paladins to kill your opponents. That guy's dead. This guy's next.
Make 3 houses.
Café, Kay,
Aoe.
pastisseau,
And he also resigns because his buddy is dead. So to end the thing, I'm using a lot of hotkeys in order to make my game slightly faster. Learning hotkeys to have a lot of these shortcuts down to produce units in the late game is very important. The big thing is go for 3 TC, play double stable knights, apply pressure with knights, use them as if they were scouts in Castle Age, and then set up 3 town centers, get to farms, make a castle, go up to Imperial Age, and then make paladin to try to kill your opponent with paladins and trebs. Even against halberdiers, if your economy is good enough, especially with the early game mixed in, you can kill your opponent until 1500 is what I would say is always going to be true. There is some debate between can you win 100% of the time? Maybe not, but going for the late game every single time with a civilization, with having a same game plan every single time, allows you to have an exponential growth in your play, especially for macro. And that's going to be the end of the video. If you guys have any questions regarding it, please comment down below. And if you like my content, consider subscribing and following me for more. See you guys later.